Welcome to Breaking the Chain. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Cody.
And today we've got a bit to talk about. You went to nationals, so we're going to talk a lot about that. So your week in nationals is going to be huge. And just the overall results of nationals. And last week we did have someone asking about how to build a gravy deck, especially as a new player. So after we have our little nationals talk and what we did in that during nationals, we're going to go over just how to build a gravy deck, kind of the first steps I would take and Cody would take to do this, and kind of go over the two really good gravy lists that went over nationals and see what we can take from that. And I think that's overall our notes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, mostly nationals and gravy bones. The hot two topics of the past week.
Yeah, exactly.
But I actually want to start out by talking about last week's episode. First of all, great episode, by the way. I thought it was really, really fun to listen to. It's always a treat to not be on the podcast and get to listen to the podcast as with fresh ears, because I can't listen to the podcast when I've talked on it. It's just not interesting to me to listen back to it, right? but it's fun to listen back to it when it's not something I've been on, and then hear you and in this case Noah's thoughts on gravy bones and everything.
There was a lot of wild takes. I'm remembering back. It's oh, what do you think's in top 8? And it's not even close. Not
well, actually, I was gonna bring that up. Your top 8 prediction was the closest, and it was very, very close too. I think the only thing you had wrong was me being in top 8. Otherwise, I think you said something like there was going to be 2 Verdants, there was going to be two Azalea, which I think there's 1. I think you said 2 Prism, and I can't remember if there's 1 or 2 Prism. And you said it. I think you said a Gravy Bones and a Puffin maybe too, and there wasn't a Puffin. But for the most part, you were pretty close. Oh, and you said 1 or 2.
Maybe I'll have to go back because I don't know why. I saw the top 8. I'm this doesn't feel close to anything I predicted.
You named, I think, every hero that was in top 8. It was new Azalea, Gravy Bones, Prism.
Yeah.
I think you even said Florian. So
I said 2 Florian. I think that was the one.
The numbers were. But I was listening to it and I was like, wait, this is almost exactly what top 8 was. But yeah, I just want to give first a shout out to Noah for filling in. Huge homie here in Denver. Really cool guy, and it was great to hear his takes on gravy. He's been a gravy fanatic ever since he was announced, as he mentioned in the last podcast. And it was really, really cool for him to fill in and hear his takes on the hero. And then, again, shout out to you for taking over the editing and the recording and everything. That was awesome. We were talking about potentially even doing a live call with me if we didn't get Noah on the podcast. And thankfully Noah was able to fill in, because it probably would have been a nightmare to try to edit out all the audio and everything with my webcam or my phone recording my voice.
It was already I going into it oh, didn't hear any Discord noises on Noah's end, feeling good, da-da-da-da-da. And it's doing a little bit of test here and there, all goes good, and then finally we get into the recording part, and then all the Discord pings start going off and everything started coming through. I'm
yeah, I noticed that, and then I saw someone comment about it too. I think it was only a few Discord notifications, if I remember correctly. It wasn't too many, but yeah, good old streamer mode. For me, it automatically enables, actually, when I open OBS. It'll automatically enable streamer mode. Although this last time I didn't, so maybe they changed it, because it's literally for this current episode we're recording. I double checked that we were in streamer mode because of the Discord notifications last episode. And it wasn't. It didn't automatically enable, so maybe they changed it. But anyway, that was the only thing I noticed about it. But also, it was a 2-hour episode, which was sick. I think it's our longest episode yet.
That's what happens when I go unsupervised. Well, I think it was 2 hours with Luke as well. It's
oh, was it?
I go unsupervised, run my own ship, and it's time, who cares about time? We're just talking until it ends sometimes. And it's nice and it's fun, but sometimes it's lack structure.
I mean, this is just for our ramblings, right? It doesn't have to it doesn't have
Yeah,
to be too
totally.
structured.
I just think it's pretty funny because like it's me doing my own thing and I go to editing and I'm like, oh man, this is so long.
Yeah.
Like not too crazy. And hope like there was one part where he actually had to like jump away in the middle because of
Oh, I noticed that.
uh
Yeah,
yes, I had to cut it. So I hope that seemed seamless.
it was weird because I was listening to it, like I wasn't watching it, and so it felt like there was a cut, but I couldn't actually that tell. Like the only reason I knew was because you said like, okay, we should be back now or something like that, and I was like, oh, I guess we had a cut.
Oh, okay.
um, by the way, otherwise I didn't even notice.
Oh, that's good.
Um, something else I noticed. You guys gave me way too much praise. You were like, "Oh, Cody's gonna win this thing. He knows what he's doing by bringing Vincent." Spoiler alert: I did not know what I was doing, and you'll hear about that in a second. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was so funny. You guys were like, "Yeah, I don't know why he's bringing Vincent, but I trust him." So I thought that was really funny. And then um, Noah's thoughts on Gravy Bones was really well thought out. Like I thought
Mm,
he nailed it in terms of like here's what I like about the hero and why in terms of like not only like like mechanics but also just like structure and everything. Um,
mm.
oh, and then I really liked some of your like lore slash art depictions like of the saltwater spell and stuff where you were talking about um how like you need to how do you phrase it again? Something about like you need
It's
to
like
master the
understanding how
seas.
like the boat like
Yeah, yeah,
flows
yeah.
with the water, so you're like punching with the water and gaining a
Right.
little more energy that way.
Like taking advantage of the sea and stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool. And it's just like this is why I like doing the podcast, right? It's because I would never notice that type of stuff like on my own. But then you have that like creative side to you that like notices these things. I'm like, wait, that's so sick. That's basically this is like a whole new level of the game I get to like enjoy.
Mm.
Uh, so I thought that was really cool too.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't think that one's like defined anywhere, but like sometimes it really bugs me. I'm like, how does that like add to the fight? So like I like step like in my little brain, I'm like, okay, saltwater swell, like, yeah, big wave. How does this add to a fight? Like, how is Gravy Bones going to punch harder because of this wave? And it's like, oh, okay, well, like maybe it's like this. And I'm like, okay, now I like that more now. So it's like
Right. Yeah,
I
no, I
have to
thought that
like
was really
walk
cool. Like
myself through sometimes.
you like connected those dots and like made that like yeah, made that connection about it.
Mm.
But yeah, anyway, those were some cool thoughts from last week's episode. I thought it was a really fun listen. Um, but yeah, with that, what did you do in Flesh and Blood this week?
It was June 6th. And you know what became legal on June 6th?
I do know it became legal.
Valda.
Yep.
Everyone's on high seas, but I'm over here brewing on Valda. I have played quite a bit of Gravy Bones, so like I'm not entirely just in my Guardian roots.
Mm,
But I went to the armory on Tuesday and brought Valda, and she is so much fun. And the new
yeah.
card is so good. I have a playset already. It's sick. I
Nice.
and I ended up playing Verdant's first round, and it normally Verdant's and Guardian very bad. Verdant's just smokes Guardian, but it's super interesting with Valda against Verdant's because Verdant's wants to block with her Earth cards to put them in grave so she can decompose them.
Mm.
But as Valda, if I'm not throwing a dominate attack, I'm just stacking auras. So
Oh, yeah.
Verdant's can't, yeah, so she can't defend. So and I got like a lucky turn 0 as well, where I stacked like a couple pump auras. So like I went first, stacked a couple pump auras, and it was really interesting because I was gonna throw like a pulverize for like 24 or something like that.
Just a casual
And
24. Yeah.
the my opponent trying not to like you could block out, but trying to stop me from like just dealing 24 damage on like turn 0. I don't think it was 24. I think it was like 22, but still they actually, which I thought was interesting, but they said they were pretty happy with their play, was they broke Stormstrider's turn 1 to be able to cast a spell to put it in the graveyard to decompose so that they could play.
Rootbound Carapace?
No. The one that sinks the card from Arsenal to the bottom of
Oh,
the deck.
Plow Under.
Plow Under. Sink the Plow Under, and it saved them like 7 life or something just by doing that.
Oh, so you the face that pulverize and they plow under it. I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and they had so like it was an interesting play, and they said they were proud of it because it like helped save them life pretty early on and got them on the right foot about getting
Yeah.
cards in graveyard. But it, that match went pretty well for me because like it's still so hard for them to decompose because like after that it's like, oh, okay, well I'll just stack, and then I threw a spinal for like 17, and then like, oh, I'll just stack, and then I threw something else for like 15 dominate, and then like they were below 10 life and I didn't really have to stack as much because every single thing was lethal.
Right.
And they ended up finally getting online, but that was like when they were in single digits. It was
It's
like
way too
it
late.
was yeah, it was a really cool game. And Valda, like, after being smoked by Valda on guard or being smoked by Verdance on Guardians forever, going in with Valda and being like, oh, here's your game plan. I'm just not gonna let you play that game plan. Like, you can't block with Earth cards, get them engraved and decompose because everything I'm throwing at either has to dominate or I'm not doing really anything for a turn that involves you. There was like it was really cool because to help decompose the pulsing Aether life, they cast like 2 at instant speed just to get the life effect to decompose on their turn.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like I would,
That's the funny thing about like denying them the Earth Graveyard is that they sometimes play these cards and it's like, oh, this card was 1 value.
yeah, because they like there was one turn where it's like they had like 2 blues, a felling, and 2 pulsing Aether lives or something like, and they like pulsing Aether 1 life, pulsing Aether 1 life off of a blue, like
Yep.
then felling, and like it's coming in for 8 and doing all this stuff, but like that was like a
Bad
not
card,
like
yeah.
not what you're looking for when you're doing all that.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. And my other 2 matchups, I played Jarl, and Jarl seems like a bad matchup for Valda. At least my build.
Yeah, because you want your chess piece. Is it really? Well,
Yeah.
I guess your chess piece doesn't matter against Jarl. Never mind.
Well, the way like my little casino deck is what I call it. It's my
Casino
casino
deck.
Valda. Is it's the Earthlord bounty, so it's
Right.
very heavily based off drawing cards.
Wait, remind me. So Earthlord Bounty is when your opponent draws a card, or when you draw a card.
No. Earthlord Bounty is when you
Oh,
draw a
okay. So
card
yeah,
off
that's
an
right. Matters more.
action effect you can, or I don't know if it's you control, but it's when you
I
draw a
see. I
card
see.
off of an action effect. And the problem is
Yeah.
aura. But while I'm doing that, it's like, oh, look at me. I'm just drawing cards all over the place. It's also
Yep.
super cool because I get to second cycle so fast.
Even faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, it was like turn 3. I lost my chess piece, and I'm like, oh, my
Oh, that's
deck is
early.
offline.
There goes all your
It was
free
pretty
seismic
early.
surges. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did have one big turn where I threw spinal for like 19 or something, but they were at 35 and I was at 12. Like even the score, but
Yeah. Not quite good
was
enough.
not yeah. And uh then my last match was into Vincent, and I was feeling really good. Like, oh, I'm going to fatigue Vincent. And I think they've had a few cards left in deck, but their last 2 turns, I was at 30 life. And in 2 turns, I was at 0 life. It was
Yep, that'll happen.
yeah.
That's what Vincent does.
Like, oh, okay, that happened very quick. And it's like I wasn't not providing pressure all game either. Like I was still like, oh, you took an off turn to try and set up. Let me do all my aura stuff. And then I like maybe a couple turns took a little extra damage, but then I was like, oh, spinal for 15 dominate, and they had to take like an off turn. So it was like interesting, but they played very well and waited until like my like attack that was kind of meant for disruption did nothing. It was like, but it's so cool and so much fun to play Valda. Like, Also, the draw card helmet feels insane in her. It's so
Draw
cool.
card helmet.
It's your opponent draws a card. It's temper 2, your opponent draws a card.
Wait, which one is this?
Civic Peak. I think it's technically target opposing hero draws a card. So you choose the opponent to draw a card, Valda triggers, and gives you a seismic surge.
Is that worth it? It doesn't seem worth it.
It's so cool because you can play around it really well. So it's interesting because it says like temper 2, but
Right.
because the opponent draws a card, you wait for the moment in which it, like, I have 4 seismic surge and spinal crush cost 5. I just need to block with this, and it lets me block with another card. So it says temper 2, but by blocking with it, I gain a resource, and I can block with my other card. So it's like temper 5 and temper 4 is how it feels like.
I see. Okay, no, that makes sense. So you can also like maybe like if it's a person that's like action point gated, they might just not be able to use the card.
Yeah, like I did that a lot against Jarl, and that's what brought me back into the game, was like using the helmet to help make things cheaper and work around that.
Yeah, using like, against Guardians makes sense.
Yeah. And even against Vincent, the turn I used, it was really interesting because they had like a very structured turn, but I could tell that they were going to break chain in the middle because Vincent needs to do that. So I let her take, or like I purposely took 1 damage to force them to break chain. Like in a really cool way, because I blocked with the helmet, a card, and pitched for the arcane barrier on the first attack. But I took 1 damage purposefully, so they wanted to break chain. So they drew a card. I don't think they ended up using it. They had like 3 cards in hand at the end.
The card doesn't matter for Vincent most of the time. Here's another blood deck card.
It broke. Yeah. So it broke chain, and then they responded with another attack, and because they broke the chain, I blocked with the helmet again.
Yeah.
So I was able to.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was really cool because I'm like, man, if I want to throw this attack, I have to keep an entire blue in hand. But I'm like 2 seismic surges off. And then when they start playing the chain, I'm like, wait a second. They want to play that second card in banished. And to do that, they need to break chain. But I can block 3 more if they break chain. It was interesting, and it allowed me to throw a like 0 for 8.
Was it like a Deathly Will that you let hit, so they'd have a chance to play it if they close the chain?
Maybe I don't. No. It wasn't like that. It was the 1 for 4 that like creates an eloquence. So it wasn't like super punishing.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, it kind of punished me on the next turn because they played Read the Runes with Go again.
Read the Runes, that's spicy.
Yeah. So I was like, but I mean, I don't know. It was somewhere like it felt like a really cool play because I was able to read that, like, or like just knowing how Vincent likes to play, like breaking the chain a lot. I'm like, I can try and block with my helmet twice, and with that, I can again like block 3 and then throw for like a 0 for 8. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Only won 1 game, but that one felt really close. And the first one was really fun, and I felt especially with, spoiler alert, Verdant's winning nationals. Like being able to take a Verdant's down in the armory feels pretty good.
Yeah, Verdant's is pretty strong, it turns out. So yeah, taking down the Verdant's is pretty sick. Man, anything else for your Flesh and Blood the past week?
Nothing crazy from me. Like a lot of Valda brewing because I'm actually gonna post a Valda deck list at some point. I really want to, but I have like 6 cards. Like my deck list is 74 cards. I don't feel like I can post this list without 6 cards. So I'm like, I have to find 6 cards that just fit in the list and like make sense before I post it, because I would feel weird being like, here's like the 74 cards you need for this deck, and like the 6 other
Right.
cards, like I don't know. Don't ask me.
Maybe like,
Like
I don't know, like
I'll
Oasis
post
or
them the list.
something. Yeah, some AB.
Right.
Yeah. I'll be looking forward to that list. I think Valda is pretty cool. I do like. I feel like in another life, I was a Guardian player, but I just haven't gotten there quite yet.
Mm-mm.
Um,
That doesn't sound like you at all. But if you ever want to try Valda, like Valda's like the least guardian of the guardians, it feels like. But
yeah,
if you
it's
ever want
definitely
to
more
try it,
aggro, huh?
and it's like somewhere it's like, yeah, they're like against Jarl, there was one turn where I got punished for trying to preserve my life,
Mm,
which is like a weird thing to say. Like I like it was greedy for me to block. Because like,
yeah.
oh, like he can throw disruption, but like I can block out this way and pretty guaranteed that the disruption and like I'm a guardian player, but like pummel just I was just like, yeah, I'll just block this
Oh, I
way. And then I
see.
got
I see.
pummeled. I was just like, well now I get disrupted and I lose an extra card. I'm like, what was I thinking? I'm like, literally if I just blocked with one less card, this would have been like all right. I was just like, oh,
Right.
I can keep 3 life. It felt weird, but is this what
I
like
see.
an aggro player is like? Like I just deal more damage if I don't block, you know? Like, I'm just never gonna do
Right. Like,
that.
why block 3 when I can send 3? Is the usual aggro player mindset.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like weird for me. Where in like Guardian, I'm like, well, how do I block most efficiently and then throw an attack?
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta hit them.
Yeah, sometimes he's gotta hit him.
um. Yeah, I did not have outside of nationals. I didn't have any flesh and blood this week. It's kind of sad actually. I'm not gonna be able to go to the Tuesday armory very much anymore because my wife's schedule changed a little bit. Um, I'll definitely still trying to make it out every once in a while, but uh,
All right.
yeah, it'll start. Unfortunately, not. I won't be going to that one anymore. So I gotta figure out maybe a different weekly armory to start going to like play more weekly in person. Um, but the other thing I did this past week was nationals, and I'll dive into that now. So the U.S. Nationals in Las Vegas. Uh, this is the second time we've had a nationals in Las Vegas actually, because it was 2 years ago. We also had it in
Is
Vegas.
this not the third time? Because didn't we have nationals in Vegas the year before as well?
No, last year was.
Well, not last year, but like 2 years ago.
I don't
Because this is
think
the
so.
fourth nationals, right? The
Probably
first two were in Vegas. Last one was in Minnesota, and then this one's in Vegas, right?
was last year in Minnesota. I guess so. Yeah. It might have been. It might have been before I was like really competitive in Flesh and Blood, and I maybe
Oh, that's
didn't
fair.
qualify or something and didn't go. But um, I mean, there was the world premiere that was in Vegas. It was also in the
Oh,
summer.
that might be what
So yeah,
I'm
maybe that's
thinking
what you're
of.
thinking. So it's like the third year in a row, not year in a row, but third year of events in Vegas. But yeah, it was Uprising world premiere. I think the year before. Um, but yeah, so I flew in pretty early. I flew in on Tuesday because basically I have the Frontier Go Wild Pass, which is I effectively fly standby, um, and I can't guarantee flights that way. And so I have this weird scenario where I have to like purposely try to fly in early just in case I don't get a flight on Tuesday, because then I get to try again for Wednesday. And then if I don't somehow get a flight on Wednesday, then I can still try again on Thursday. And I'm like basically guaranteed a flight by Thursday. And so I flew in Tuesday. I found a good flight, flew in Tuesday. Um, and the team, there's 10 of us that shared an Airbnb. So it was a little bit of a crowded Airbnb. Um, but it was nice because, as you know, splitting Airbnb 10 ways makes it pretty cheap to
Yeah,
stay somewhere. Um,
reminds me of LA. Oh, what was it? The ProQuest when like the Airbnb right next to the place, but it's like we had like 4 people in like each room or something like that.
oh no, it wasn't it was what was that event? It wasn't a
Pro
pro
Tour.
tour, was it? Was it a pro tour? Oh, it
Yeah, it
was a pro
was.
tour. Yeah, it was a pro tour. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You stayed with us at that Airbnb. Yeah. That exactly. When it's split a lot of ways, like it's a little bit crowded, but it's kind of worth only paying like $150 for the entire week or weekend rather. Um So flew in Tuesday and didn't really do a ton the first 2 days because I was actually like working from the Airbnb, like working from home. But Thursday is when the prep really kicked in, and a lot of my team was on Vincent, which is why I ended up going on Vincent. I did pretty well at the Pro Tour London because I was playing Enigma. Not only was I comfortable with Enigma, but a lot of my team was on Enigma, and we all got to like collaborate and like share sideboarding guides and like our matchup knowledge and everything. And so I was overvaluing being on the same hero as my team was on for the same because it worked well on Pro Tour London. But I made the fatal flaw of neglecting the fact that I also played Enigma and knew how to play Enigma back in Pro Tour London, whereas I had not been playing Vincent and did not know how to play Vincent for U.S. Nationals. So I kind of overvalue that, like being on the same deck concept a little too much, and I it was interesting. So basically, to get to Vincent being the deck choice, we had this like slightly flawed tier list of what we thought was going to be good for nationals, um, being Kano and Prism also at the top of the meta is what we thought we like initially predicted, and turns out that those two decks were not up there. A lot of the decks that we thought would be good were good, but those two decks weren't quite present. And Vincent is pretty good into both those decks actually, and so that's why like we were all saying like we're thinking okay, Vincent seems like a good choice. You know, good into Prism, good into Kano, good into like some of those at the top of the meta decks. And I was on board too. I was like, okay, I've been wanting to play Vincent. I think she's strong. You know, this, that, and the other. But turns out, yeah, our meta prediction was a little bit wrong. Florian was pretty rampant, a lot more than we thought. We thought Florian's play rate would die down, and turns out he was the most brought deck. Still not by much, right? I think it was still only like 10 or 12% of the meta. But
I honestly think that Florian would have gone down more if Nationals wasn't the week of release.
I agree.
And that's kind of like my I was gonna say that was like my take on it was like, okay, well, Florian, like, it's the first day of the release. No one's had in paper cards, and like, sure, you have Talistar testing and all that other ways to test. But I feel like there's a lot of people that played Florian because of how strong he was that are just gonna be like, you know what? He's still pretty alright. He got another 3 block Earth Blue, so like,
right.
I'll just stick to Florian and like just run it through as best I can.
Yeah, I think that was a major factor. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. I think if it was a week or two later, Florian's play rate would have nosedived. But because of the card acquisition issues and just people's lack of time to test, we inaccurately predicted the Florian play rate. And what's funny though too is that like before, like when I was considering other decks like Dash IO and Azalea and stuff, like the reason I went off Dash IO was like I was not wanting to play the Florian matchup. I was like, oh, Florian's I don't want to play against Florian, and it won't be good. And I didn't like think that Dash was really a good choice at the beginning of like testing, and so I like wrote it off and I didn't think about it again, which was a mistake because I definitely should have been playing Dash IO. This is what I've like come to realize. But anywho, I ended up choosing Vincent. And I was not prepared at all to be playing Vincent. Like Vincent is not the deck that you can pick up if you have less than a dozen games under your belt. It's just not gonna go well for you.
I didn't realize you had that little.
It was when I started, like when I chose, like when I was like, okay, I'm gonna play this deck. That's where I was at. I had like less than a dozen games under my belt. I had watched some of the other players like prepare the deck and play it a lot. Like I've seen a ton of games of it, but I hadn't actually played it that much. And what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought there. But yeah.
Now
so
you're talking about how you should have been on Do instead.
Yeah, actually, so sorry. What I do want to say though too is I was preparing a lot of gravy bones initially. I spent actually a good amount of time, and when we had all the cards, I was preparing gravy bones, diving into it and considering it as an option because a couple of people on the team got the Hammurabi TCG like the package of like you get a playset of all the cards from the new set. Like they bought that playset from him, and there was one team member that wasn't quite sure he was going to play Gravy Bones. He was like on the fence, and so I potentially had the option to play Gravy Bones, like have all the cards available to me. And so I prepared it a lot in the beginning, because actually at first he was like he wasn't going to be playing Gravy Bones, and then he was iffy on it. And so I was like, well, I don't know if I can prepare Gravy Bones and then not get to play Gravy Bones. And so that's when I switched to Vinset and started playing, like practicing Vinset. And so it was like maybe a week before Nationals is when I really actually started practicing Vinset, which is way too late for Vinset practicing.
It's already some tough for some people to want to switch to like Gravy with how close it was, or like Marlin or Puffin.
Well, it literally came out actually. What the real deciding factor for me was I wasn't sure that I was gonna be able to get the cards from him, and so I was like, I wasn't planning on it. I was gonna like potentially just like look for the cards myself, buy the cards myself, and then I was looking at like Conquer the High Seas and some of the cards I was going to have to buy to build this Gravy Bones deck, and I was like, I can't spend this much money buying this deck if I'm just going to scrub out. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like if I spend like $100 per Conqueror, and like there's so many M's that deck needs, and if I spent all the money on like building like putting together that deck, not only
because like every card's good.
yeah, and they're all good too. Like you kind of need all the M's as well. But yeah, so not only was it going to be really expensive if I did get all the cards, but especially when I'm piecing it together like that, there's just no way I'm going to be able to find all those cards. Like it's just not going to be a thing. Like I'm going to be missing a few M's here and there, and then I'm just not going to have a full deck. And it's just going to be a nightmare to actually gather the deck together. And so that's actually why I ended up writing off the deck. Was like at the time I wasn't counting on the teammate to not to have the cards available for me. And so I was like, I can't justify this cost and like acquisition wise. I cannot justify playing Gravy Bones. And so even though I did put a lot of prep into him, he just I ended up being like, I have to write this deck off. Like it's a good deck, but I can't play it at Nationals. Like it's not an option for me. So that's when I switched to Vinset. But that's when I should have switched to Dio. It's really what I'm getting at. But I'll go over my rounds really quick. So I didn't end up playing Vinset. The first round I played in against an Acilio that tried to fatigue me, but I beat him. I ended up finding like a go again and pushed through. The second round I lost to a Syndra that was basically trying to fatigue me. It was actually really interesting. So they were a blue Syndra list, and they had a lot of 3 blocks, and there was basically a time where I played I played Succumb. I pre-committed Succumb because at the time they were just going AB3 block 6, like continually over and over and over again. They were just that was their game plan. And so I got to a point where like I had Machinations, which is the card that gives your next Rune Blade attack go again and overpower. And so I pre-committed Succumb, played Machinations, played a big attack. So I was able to push through. I was finally able to push through some damage. And I think I put him down to like 2. And it was at that point that I was like, okay, I just need to find my next overpower card. And I pushed through, and I will win. I think they were at like 2 or 3, and they had like 1 or 2 pieces of armor left. So I was like, I just need a big attack in my Banish Zone. I need to have overpower, and I'm good. I win the game. And I think it was like 2 more turns. I didn't find any go again at all. Like they were just the problem with Vinset is if you don't find go again, then your opponent can just AB3 block 6. And that's all they need to do. Like they're not gonna need to do anything more than that if you don't find go again. And so there's a couple turns of that, and then I finally draw a hand. I'm like, okay, here's Machinations. I have my overpower. Here's like I think I had like a Revel or something too. So it was like this is the hand. I got it. Warmongers.
Oh.
I think it was like I was at like 1 or 2, and so I couldn't afford to banish a blood debt card and take blood debt.
Oh yeah.
And so it was just like, oh no, I finally found the hand that would like push through their fatigue. They're just like blocking out basically. And then I get Warmongers. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I end up dying. I think I made a couple of small mistakes that game too, though. Like I face perked at a pretty bad time. Just trying to get value out of it when it didn't end up being a good face perk. And then I think there's somewhere else I made a small mistake, but I got Warmongers pretty early on in the tournament. And then the third round, I played against Levia. So the problem with playing a deck that you don't know is that if the sideboard guide doesn't have a sideboard guide for that matchup, you don't know what the hell you're doing. I've never played against Levia, as been said. I look at the sideboard notes, and there's no Levia there. I'm like, I don't know how to sideboard this person. It's not the same as KO or Rhinar. Like, I don't think those were in there either, for what's worth. But I was like, okay. I started to think about it. I was like, okay, they're gonna try to kill me. So, or it's gonna be like slow at the start probably, and then they're gonna try to just pedal the metal, kill me. So like, I probably need to like have armor with grasp. I probably need to like maybe have D-Reacts, maybe not. Maybe just try to kill them whenever they do try to kill me, like just like do the counter play. So I was like going through all this, and I finally just like decided on like having grasp of the Arc Knight, and I think I didn't run D-Reacts or anything. And turns out I was supposed to be running Vexing Quill Hand in that matchup because I draw Oblivion, the card that summons Nazareth, my very first turn, and I park it in Arsenal because I was able to like make a ton of rune chance and pass. And that Oblivion was stuck in my arsenal for basically the rest of the game. The problem was I actually had an opportunity to get it out, but I made a mistake because I hadn't played much paper Vincent. And so I play a Deathly Well the previous turn. I purposely paid a life to get an extra rune chant. And then we go to the next turn. He plays a card, and I'm like, I didn't make rune chants off the Deathly Well. I just like went to the next turn. So I lost 2 rune chants. And so I called the judge over just to make sure, because I wasn't sure if it was like a missable trigger or not. So I was like, hey, I forgot my rune chance. He already made an action. What happens here? Like, is it a missable trigger, or do I just get the rune chance anyway? And sure enough, it is a missable trigger. So I didn't get the rune chance. And what's funny is that on that wild ride he played, he missed. He hit Blood Rush Bellow. And so he was just dooming the whole time. He was like, oh my God, the game's over. Like, I lose, like this, that, and the other. And I was like, hold on, my guy. I don't think you realize how bad this is for me. Like, had I made the 2 rune chants, yes, he would have lost. But unfortunately, because I forgot there were 2 rune chants, my hand literally did nothing. It was so bad. So I ended up like blocking 5, banishing a card. I think like I IP'd. I literally didn't even do anything. It was so bad because like if I had the 2 rune chants, I was gonna be able to like throw 2 attacks and Oblivion and summon Nazareth. But without those 2 rune chants, the hand literally did nothing. So anyway, long story short, it was 2 different cases of inexperience that like caused me to lose that game. And then the 4th round,
Levia's got to be really hard for Vincent because like she can go fatigue and she can go aggro. It is really like she can play based off how you play, like in that matchup. Like normally Levia is like, oh, like I'll just go like real heavy, but if you're like starting off the gate, just going heavy, like the Levia can usually just be like, oh, okay, like prevent all your arcane block because their block or non-block cards are usually her blues. Like Wild Rides maybe the like, or Wild Wide and Pulping. Those 2 are the only 2 that like don't block at red.
Yeah, it was interesting too because like I talked to the guy about it, and I was saying like, oh, I missed sideboard because I thought you were gonna be slow early and then like ramp up late. And he was like, no. Like now with sea legs and everything, I'm just always pedal the metal, right? And I kind of saw it because he was like, he had the I think he's like at least the 3 wild rides and the pulpings. I think he might have had some other go again as well in his deck, but also the sea legs. And so I think he had a good point of like his early game is actually pretty strong now.
Levia especially with the way he has a lot of engine too.
Yeah,
like with Call to the Grave, that made it a lot more consistent. Like,
yeah, it was just funny because like he had a lot of bad variants, but I messed up, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And then my 4th round, I lost to a Dio that effectively fatigued me. It was again like I literally for like I think it was 4 or 5 turns. I hadn't seen a single Shadow Puppetry the entire game. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna find a Shadow Puppetry. I just gotta wait it out. So I just kept throwing an attack every turn, even though it was like kind of bad for me because he just kept going AB3 block 6. And so I was just like, I'm gonna keep doing this force because I was like kind of getting low. I didn't want the Dio to have a pop off turn and like kill me. So I was like, I'm just gonna keep throwing an attack. I'm fine if he keeps doing this. Eventually, I'm going to find a go again attack and just pop off and push through. And I just didn't. I just never found it. Like, I had like 20 cards left in my deck, and 3 of them were Shadow Puppetries. It was like, it was really rough. And then also the turn that I had an off turn, I drew my hand no attacks to perk him with. So I couldn't face perk either on like the turn that I let him effectively crack back at me. I do think go ahead.
I want to ask, do you guys run, or did your team run the 1-for-4 on damage, create an eloquence?
Yeah.
And then you guys have like the action that becomes an instant when damage is dealt, right?
Yeah, Cole.
Yeah, that one, and then the one that just creates a rune chant.
Oh, Funeral Moon. No Funeral Moon. But like, I looked for those opportunities too. There was a time like, it's probably like what I was about to say is I think if I was a better Vincent player, I might have been able to find a way through anyway, because I basically had a Deadwood Dirge Parked in Arsenal for those like 3 or 4 turns, just waiting for the go again, so I could go like, and I had like I basically had a Malefic out that entire time too, because I like had a Malefic out, and then I was like, I played another Malefic in the middle there somewhere. It's like have another Malefic out, so I was like constantly having this like method to double gate him, but I was waiting for go again, so I could go, Shadow Puppetry, gate, and then there's the one range trying to make off the Malefic to the
Did you already use Spellbound Creepers?
I didn't. So I had, that's the thing is I had Spellbound Creepers, so there was an opportunity to just do that instead, but I didn't feel like it was good enough. And I was just gonna lose my creepers, I felt like, in all of these cases. So I was waiting for like the natural go again, so then I could creepers the fall anyway. So that's what I'm saying is like I probably just messed it up.
I guess I'm just like analyzing because like I'm like thinking back to my Vincent game that like on Tuesday, like, okay, like, well, there's this play that happened.
I think that's probably where I made the mistake is I was probably supposed to creepers it out at one point, but I just don't know. Like, I didn't know. I wasn't comfortable enough with the deck to like find those lines. So I ended up losing the 4th round to Dio, and then the 5th round I lost to Florian, which is funny because I actually like put the most preparation into Florian, because it's like it's actually a very winnable matchup. It's not like that bad for you, but it is not good. It's not a good matchup, and it just kind of like went as it usually goes. If you
it was like 30-70s.
Yeah, I think it's better than that. It's like 35-40, I think, for Vincent. Like you can just like sometimes they just have terrible early game, and then you have a really good early game, and then you can kind of just like push through. But this guy, like, one of the things that like I noticed with all of my opponents is with Vincent, a lot of times your opponents don't really have a lot of experience into you, right? Because there's not a ton of Vincent players out there. But I think every single one of my opponents said they either played Vincent or they have a close friend / testing partner that played Vincent. So they all kind of knew what they were doing. And this Florian was one of them. Like they were like constantly holding a extra card for my Purgatory. And they were like holding their Purgatory like whenever it didn't make sense to perk me. Like I was playing on their Purgatory and they weren't doing it. And you kind of need them to like get a bad Purgatory against you. And then like the vice versa. Like every time I noticed, like I wasn't perking him, but every time he would like have the instant discard 2 health in his hand. So if they was perked, he would just discard the 2 to gain 2, and then it wouldn't matter. So
I just lose that one instead.
Yeah. So it was like a lot of times like he definitely knew what he was doing in the matchup, basically. And when that happens, like the matchup's not great for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended 1-4 for CC, and I was just like, oh well, I kind of expected it. That's why it was funny. It was like I was not what's the word I'm looking for? I was not hopeful for my nationals run, and so that's why it was so funny after the fact hearing you both talk about me on the podcast, be like, oh, he's gonna. We believe in him. He's gonna take it down, even though you're like, Vincent's a weird choice. We don't know why we're doing it, why he's doing it, but we're gonna put our trust in him. And I was like, so you should have put your trust in me. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, you were like on a huge tear recently, like in the hunted. Going to the Pro Quest, you got was it just national? RTNs.
It was, if you're talking about the first Pro Quest with Enigma. It was just because like I was like really I felt really good with it on Enigma, like with the list and like my play. which is why like I really value being a specialist and a hero. I think it's a huge deal being comfortable with your deck and comfortable with a lot of the matchups, and that's
Oh
why I
yeah.
should have been playing Dash IO because I would have been really comfortable with it, and I would have known what the hell I was doing instead of just dirtling around with this Vincent hero that just doesn't know what they're doing. Um,
Right.
but
But it's
yeah,
like it felt like you're on like such a tear recently, and then you went to the Pro Tour and you did like well in that as well.
yeah,
So it's like
yeah. No,
it's
I've been on
like
a tear, but it's like it's one of those things where I just need to stick to a hero. Like even if they're just okay, I'm way better off playing a hero that's just okay that I'm very comfortable with than playing a hero that I think is better positioned that I'm just not prepared at all on. And that's like
yeah.
I've been like ever since Dromai left, I've been flip flopping heroes very very often trying to figure out what like clicks for me, and it's been kind of like hurting outside of Enigma, which is like a new
Hmm.
illusionist.
And
Um,
it's weird because like I think there is a lot to like sticking to a hero,
mhm.
but it's like it's interesting because like sometimes like sticking to a specific hero or class isn't like crazy beneficial because like Guardian's not good right now. Guardian hasn't been good
Yeah,
for a while. And it's like just like from like my perspective, like it definitely would have been better for me to jump over to a different class. But it's like I definitely have a lot of value and I see the value of like sticking. Like on Jarl, like I like especially in the end, like I knew a lot of really cool things and ways to play around with Jarl. And it was like the Dio matchup on Jarl. Like I've played so much with you and played so many Dios that like, oh okay, like I have my seeds of tomorrow. They haven't popped off yet. I'm just gonna IP take like one damage here, wait for them to have like a bigger turn because this is when I'm gonna like need it here or do this. So it's like cool like having those like all that knowledge. But like
yeah.
sometimes like you sit down, you're like, I'm on Yarrow, and they go, I'm on Verdance. You're like, that was a good game.
Yeah. Oh, I actually wanted to ask, like, so how do you feel about this is a side question. How do you feel about the flooring matchup post Germinate ban as Jarl?
uh I actually haven't tested at all.
Like
I've
initial,
been
like so
playing Grave.
if you had to think about it,
Oh
like
yeah.
do you think that you could beat a Florian now that they don't have Germinate?
I think it's a completely different game.
Right.
Like I think it's something I would need to like test more into. Because like it's something you might be able to like as long as you can get all the armor destruction, you can maybe turn to fatigue.
I was gonna say because
But
like
it's like
isn't the grasp destruction just guaranteed at a certain point? Like once you get like to turn
at a
10 or
certain
something,
point.
you're probably just gonna have their grasp destroyed.
What's interesting is like I did lose into the Pro Quest to a Florian, the one I went to, and they were playing. And I also think it's based on the weapon of choice because they were playing Dread Scythe, and if they're playing Dread Scythe,
Mm,
Grasp doesn't really do a lot.
right.
So
I
it's like
remember
you
that
have
now.
to, yeah. So it's like I think I'd have to sit down and test more because I think the decks can be very different.
Mm,
Like I saw Florian's running Bramble Sparks now, which I don't think was huge beforehand. So it's like I think there is like some merit of like, okay, I have to go back, try these different strategies. Is it actually possible to like fatigue? Because with like I still have to block with a card whenever they throw a weapon, which is -1 card.
yeah.
But mine is 6 damage, which is -2 cards on their side. But I don't know, it's
Yeah.
weird. I
I
think
was
it's
just curious.
possible now because like if you went slow, Florian could just wait and stack and like, oh okay, here's 12 rune chance, and then here's 8 damage. Like you have to block with 3 cards and present like 12 rune chance. Like, what are you gonna do?
Right. Yeah, I was just curious because like the reason I bring it up is because I feel like Jarl was a bit better positioned than he ended up resulting, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
if you
I
beat Florian now because of no Germany and like the way that the decks are built, and Syndra was number two, so I guess we should have gone over that actually. I, I just should have had that prepared. The meta for nationals.
oh
Um,
yeah.
see if I can find it really quick. Here it is.
Oh, yeah.
So just as a quick recap of the nationals meta game breakdown. The first was the top brought deck was Florian at 62. Then it was Syndra at 43, Azalea at 39, Prism at 37, and then I'll just say the next few: 31 Arachne Marionettes, 30 News, and 25 Gravies. And then it's just like a ton of heroes after that. It's like pretty evenly spread, which is kind of actually what I was expecting, was like a
Mhm.
very wide meta with not like a ton of dominance from any specific hero. But it was interesting seeing Syndra at number 2. That was
I mean,
quite
it seems
quite
pretty
cool.
open.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty open. Like Florian was
I
the number
think,
1 brought, but like not by a ton. I think it was still only like 10 or 11% of the meta.
and like through my testing, like it's something that I need to test again more into and try different strategies. But Gravy seems really hard on Guardian. Like Gravy feels
Yeah.
really bad.
It's pretty
Verdant
rough
is
for you.
really bad, and like the arcane compliance, like, oh,
Mm.
that seems really cool. But Verdance can just stack on her own trigger. Like, oh, Verdance trigger, I'll stack on this. You can't reduce it. And that's like, okay, I didn't think about that. That's really smart. That's really good. I can't stop a Verdance combo.
You can't stack on your own trigger. I
Like
guess
when
not.
her,
It has to be a card on the stack, huh?
because yeah, it has to be
Interesting.
an action card on the stack that you
Interesting.
target.
I
So
didn't
she can
realize that's why
stack
he
on
was
her own.
doing that. Okay.
Yeah, that's like I
That's
was
sick.
watching him and like I saw him stacking on his own trigger, and I think I heard some like one of the announcers saying like da 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 da, like arcane compliance can't target this, and I was like, oh no, they already figured it out. Like,
Yeah, that's actually I didn't realize. I was wondering. I was like, that's kind of cool that he's just stacking on his own trigger. He doesn't need a spell to do this thing with. But that makes sense. He's playing around arcane compliance. Okay. Okay. Sick.
yeah, so it's like
Um. Go ahead.
Verdance is brutal, and I think Gravy there might be something to figure out there. I have to approach it differently,
Mhm.
and I know I talked to Noah a little bit about it, especially with Valda, because I've done a bit of Valda and Gravy testing, which is
Yeah.
different. But it's like blow for blow he was recommending. I was debating at looking at like out muscle, which is the 3 for 6 if it's not
Mhm.
defended by card with equal or greater to attack
Right.
value.
Right.
It gets
Right.
go again.
I think that might be the wrong approach, and we'll get to it later. But I was going to suggest. I think people are going to start running graveyard hate. Is what really the answer is, because if you just turn all of his if you just get rid of all of his whalers, what's it going to do? Right? Like,
Yeah,
how is he going to push through fatigue if you get rid of all the whalers?
I find like the hardest part though is like in Guardian running the graveyard hate because it's like
Mhm.
a 1 for 5. It really doesn't fit in anything Guardian. Like I think Jarl might be able to run it
I think
fine.
you just run the
Like
blues. It sucks, but like, if you get
yeah, it
rid of a
really
whaler with
sucks.
it, if you get rid of a whaler with it though, like
Yeah, then
that's
you're
pretty
feeling
good.
pretty good.
That's pretty
I
good.
was also thinking like Midas Touch might be something all right because like
It's
you
fine,
can
yeah.
park that in Arsenal. It's a yellow.
You can
It's
park it in Arsenal. That is the big deal.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like and it has go again, so I can still like continue my turn in a way. Like
Mm. The only problem,
I
like
don't
my
know.
only
There's a
thought with
lot of
that is like, yeah, I guess if you have Tunic minus touch because it will cost 1, right? Tunic
yep.
minus touch and Arsenal is pretty good. Um,
Yeah,
but like the gravekeeping just actually like stops it from even entering the field.
that's totally fair. I am interested to see how it goes, and I think there is
Yeah.
tech. It doesn't feel like it's completely lost,
Right.
but there's definitely like times when I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm like I just got smoked. Like
Yeah, it's
I
still
wasn't
not
even
gonna
a
be a good
close
matchup.
game.
Like,
Yeah,
um, but yeah. So anyway, so I went 1 forward and I dropped. I could have played like the draft, and I was dead because only X3s make day 2. I could have technically still played the draft, but I was like, I'm just gonna get my free 3 packs and just go do something else in Vegas. So that's what I did. I dropped, and then I ended up playing poker, and I did pretty well actually. I did pretty well the entire weekend. So even though I lost in flesh and blood, it was actually a pretty good weekend for me anyway. So I
like
consider the weekend a win anyway.
I was saying before the podcast, your EV was up overall.
Yeah, my EV was good for the weekend, just not in flesh and blood.
Not flesh and blood.
But yeah, for nationals, just want to go over top 8 really quick. First place was Majin Bay. Congrats to Majin. What took it down on Verdance. Uh, really sick. And
Super
then
skillful. So much
yeah,
fun to watch his games. And then like very well deserved. Like, it's cool to see someone that's like been known in the community for his skill and like his ability to play and like just being in the community and who he is. Like, it's
Yeah,
cool to see him take this. Like, that was fun.
yeah, it was really cool to watch. And I'll get to those games in a second. Second place was Jacob Shaker on Gravy Bones. So Gravy Bones got to the finals of nationals, which is really cool. And then Jacob Lance on Azalea, Bird Cabrera on New, Andrew Cook on Prism, Adrian Gebhardt on Florian, Randy Davis on Florian, and Lucas Oswald on Verdansk. And I just want to give a big shout out to Bird Cabrera. It's one of my teammates actually on New. Did really, really well. Had an insane, really fun game. Highly recommend that New
Oh yeah.
versus Verdansk game against Majin Bay. Really, really cool game to watch. I think there was a ton of skillful decisions made on both sides to get to that end game state where I don't know. I can't describe it, but like I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, even though it was like a really long game. I think it was like 70 minutes or
Oh yeah.
something. It was
It was
such a cool
so
game to watch.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally went down to the last few cards in deck for Majin.
It went down to the last card in deck.
Was it
It
the last
was
card? It might have
it
been.
was
Yeah.
the last card in deck. It was crazy.
Mhm.
I got the Sunday off and I'm like, oh, I'll sit back and watch the like top 8. This is gonna be fun. And it was so cool to watch like all of like one Majin's game, but that game was so cool, like just so
Mhm.
back and forth. And like it almost ended mid game, like 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
Like if
Dude.
which is crazy. It's just like banishing a card off the top, hitting the arcane spell, not drawing an arcane
Mhm.
spell after that. Like if that banish didn't go through, Majin just won
Yeah.
like 30 minutes in. But because of like just that play there and like all of a sudden the game went from like, oh, it was like 30-minute game to like a 70-minute game, last card in deck. Like it was such a good game. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's a really fun game to watch. Highly recommend. I didn't actually get to watch too many other top 8 games. Were there any other ones that you'd want to know that are worth going back and watching?
The Florian Verdance one
Oh, really?
was like Majin Bay. It was really interesting to watch because like I think the Florian player went into it with because like it was weird and it was like a situation where there's like new rule to kind of prevent games from infinitely being played over and over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Because the Florian gameplay is just to sit underneath the life of Verdance and never let them combo you, and you just kind of just sit there in arcane barrier and never play the game until they
Right.
combo
Read and
you.
played. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Verdance gameplay is to just try and drop below, like decompose, get your hand, and just let them attack you. So like it was interesting because I think the Florian went into the game thinking that they'll just like fatigue and force the Florian to play. I mean, first the Verdance to play,
Mhm.
and then like there was a point in the game when they both were just about to just pass with 4 card hands. So like I think one of them called a judge over like, hey, what happens if both of us just start passing?
Yeah.
And the ruling is in especially a top 8 scenario, like before top 8, it's just a draw.
Mm.
But if like there are no game actions played beyond like both sides of the opponent, and I think it's like depending on the scenario, like if there's no game action played based on both opponents, the opponent with the most life wins, which really disadvantaged the Florian
Interesting.
player. But like he still played a really cool game and tried to walk it down to like make sure he didn't just straight up lose. And it was really cool and really interesting to watch that game all the way through.
Okay.
But
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like I really enjoyed that game. And then oh my goodness, I like not forgetting or I'm forgetting the matchup completely. Or like all the matchups on my head. Did,
Well, yeah. While looking through that,
like those were the two that were like
yeah,
crazy fun games to watch and super cool, super long. And I like those long games personally. But like
yeah.
I think like a lot of the games in the top 8 were very good. So I would recommend, but those two specifically, I really enjoyed.
Cool. Yeah. But yeah, really cool Nats. I thought it was, despite the issues, like it being, it was actually interesting. So at the start of the tournament, like the welcome announcement, they mentioned that they intended for nationals to be 1 week after the release of High Seas, which was interesting hearing them explicitly say that. Um, because
Oh, okay.
it was all like what we kind of thought. We thought it was like a little bit off for it to be the same weekend, and that actually wasn't their intention. Their intention was 1 week after the release, and I assume that there's just so many moving parts, right? Like
Yeah.
there's the venue that they have to book, there's distribution that they have to schedule for, there's the pre-releases and all that kind of stuff. So I assume that something just my assumption is that they had the venue booked already, and the production got delayed by 1 week is my guess. Like all the we know there's been distribution issues. I assume is because the reason it was the same weekend was because of distribution issues, pushing it back by a week.
That would make
Um,
sense.
so I think it was interesting to hear them explicitly say that. But I think despite that, it was a good tournament. Um, I'm glad I went. Glad I competed. I wish I had the forethought to not play Vincent, but it's fine. I had a good time. Um, now that I have lost a lot of elo, I I can actually I'm planning on going to place a lot more battle hardened than calling, since I have that, like, basically that standby pass, and so I'm actually considering going to battle hardened Houston at the end of this month. So that should be fun if I do end up going. Um, but I want to say that, like, now I'm gonna be preparing Gravy Bones. That's gonna be my next deck for sure. I think the deck is really cool. It's right up my alley. It's like what I want, what I like to be playing. And I think there's a lot of interesting ways to take the deck, and I think that Jacob Shaker's version was super interesting. And we're gonna get into now how to build Gravy Bones and how, like, the type of lists that are running around now and all that kind of stuff. Because as you mentioned, we had a comment on last week's episode, from a new player asking, "Hey, how do I get into Gravy Bones? I played Gravy Bones in my pre-release. I really liked him. How do I actually build this deck? How do I get into Flesh and Blood with Gravy Bones?" I thought your comment was really good. You said start with the Armory deck. That's like, I agree 100%. Just start with the Armory deck. Don't buy anything else. Just do the Armory deck and start there. It's playable at an Armory level, as far as I understand. It's not going to win you a lot of armories, but it will get you the idea of the deck, and it's a very good start to the hero. Um, is there anything you want to add on the new player?
Yeah, I was gonna say the Armory deck I feel like is pretty complete. Like obviously you can make a lot of upgrades, but like there is like you have a equipment suite that like feels like it like makes sense. It's not just like, oh, I have these random boots that don't really do anything. There's like some really cool things you can do. Like if you like Olsztyn, like being able to break the boots on him, give go again, and just create a gold because he ends up going to graves.
I want to interrupt there for a second. Actually, that was something I noticed in the last week's podcast. Is you kept calling it Olsztyn, and it's Oyston.
Oh,
sorry. It's Oyston. just make sure we don't keep calling Oyston Olsztyn. It's Oyston, right, like an oyster almost. Yeah,
Oyston. Sorry, I as a card game player, I am illiterate, so reading the card
as we all are.
Yeah, Oyston. But anyways, Oyston. It is kind of cool to be able to break it and get a gold and be able like 3 go again. It's not the strongest thing. I'm sure there's other ways you can play it, but like I found when I was playing at the Armory with that, it was like that was like a play where I'm like, man, this hand's just dead. Being able to do that helps like fix some hands. But I think even like looking at some of the national lists, like I think some of the cheapest and easiest ways to like just jump in if you're like, okay, I maybe play the Army deck for a week or two, but then after that, like, oh, how do I upgrade? Or maybe you want to upgrade the Army deck immediately. One of the best things I saw was just Rainbow Golden Tipple. It's like, it's a common. And I'm sure you could ask anyone at the Armory, or you can even like open up a like box and get a bunch of it and just put Rainbow Golden Tipple in there. Like Brody Spurlock's Battle Hardened list ran Rainbow. When I came home after that Armory, love playing that. My first step was actually putting rainbow golden tipple in the deck because the blue felt so. Was it? I can't remember, but it's like I think that's one of the biggest and easiest upgrades for the deck.
That's what I was gonna say is that the cool thing about Gravy Bones is that all of these lists that I'm looking at, 90% of the cards are from the newest set. So what you can actually
Mm,
do is you can start with the armory deck, get comfortable with the list, understand how the deck functions, and then you can like buy just packs here and there or like a box of the new set and just upgrade your deck piecemeal. Like, oh, here's some new allies I get to run. Here's some maybe I pull some of the M's like Sea Legs or Tip the Barkeep or whatever. Like that doesn't come with the armory deck, and you just get to like upgrade your deck just by like buying the new set. And you don't need any cards from previous sets outside of maybe some equipment would be potentially useful. Um,
right.
but yeah, I think Gravy Bones is like one of the best heroes to like piecemeal upgrade from the armory deck.
Mhm. No, I completely agree with that. And it's like I just think that a lot of the early upgrades you can do from the armory deck are like rares and
Mm.
commons. Like I think it only comes with 2 Avasti. You can make the 3 Avasti. You can
Yeah.
like flying high is in the second place list, and that's a really cool and interesting card, which I think does a lot.
Mm.
I didn't realize it's just your next attack gets go again, but just having a blue that says one of my allies gets go again, super relevant. Like I think the lists that are like I think looking at Gravy looks really scary, especially after nationals when you see all these fables and all these like really expensive cards. But like I really don't think you need those. Like I was playing against Noah, who I was talking to that last week, and like I was saying, I was playing Guardian in his Gravy list. He didn't have the Fabled. He didn't have like his list was very, very different. And I would say like much cheaper. And it was still like a challenge for me. It's still a really cool and interesting deck. So it's like something where it's like, oh, you have like just get some of like play it out, feel how you like to play it. And it's like it reminds like talking about this reminds me of when I first started and I started on Guardian. And it's like I started with like, oh, like do this majestic, one of this majestic. And it's like
Mhm.
slowly as I started playing more, and I'm like, man, I really like this majestic. Then I went and bought the singles of that majestic. Like, oh, Spinal Crush is crazy in Guardian. I'll buy 2 more of those. So that's
Yeah. Yeah.
it is kind of interesting to like
Yeah.
be able to piece together a deck like that.
Exactly. I think this is the coolest thing about starting the game on Gravy Bones that it's almost like Aurora did with like the new player what they called it, like the path the line to like CC. I
Uh
forget what I'm
yeah,
blanking on the phrase for it, but anyway, like the new
get the phase
player
2.
path to CC is it's almost similar with Gravy Bones, where like you get to start with the armory deck, and then you just get to like
Mm,
piecemeal together. You can just buy packs and like, okay, here's a cool ally. I'm gonna throw this ally in the deck. Oh, here's an M that works. I'm gonna throw that in the deck. Here's some golden tipples that are just commons. You can like find them in any pack, or maybe conquer the high seas is like something you get to pull and throw in your deck. Like there's you can just like upgrade this deck over time, and it like if you'll get to the point where like you have all of the non-fable cards, and you're gonna be pretty happy with the deck as is. And like the fables are just gonna add like a
mm,
little bit of extra spice for like competitive reasons, but you don't need those for armories at all. Um, and so yeah, I think it's a really cool new player. Like I wish I knew the word for it, but a new player like path to CC, like in the
yeah.
competitive.
And it's like I again, like one of the biggest things I would even recommend is just going to like your local armory, even if you only play like the base one then, and then being like, hey, there's like because from at least this area and what I've heard from around a lot in Flesh and Blood is the community's super friendly. And I know if you came to my armory and you're like, hey, I'm new to the game. I want to jump in on Gravy Bones. Do you have any of like the bulk I could have? Like, do you have any of the golden
There's
tipple? Like,
plenty of
so I
people
could
that'll
run
have
Rainbow.
bulk just laying around.
Yeah.
If you go to some of these
Like, do you
armories, like
have
if
an
they're
extra?
packed for wins, like you'll just see people just leave the bulk on the table, and you can just like there's plenty of bulk around for you to grab.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, do you have an extra like Murderous Ravel's another really good one
Mm.
that like I've seen a lot of list runs. So it's like just like going around and asking for bulk. Like, oh, does anyone have extra of this? I have extra of this. And it's like maybe it's not the Majestics, but you can really fill out your deck. Like another ally that I see is a big upgrade is like Swabby.
Mhm.
And he's in a lot of the deck list, but he's not in the armory deck. And you could just go like, hey, does anyone have extra Swabbies? And boom, you come back next week. I have the Swabbies for you. I have the flying highs. I have all the golden tipples. Like
Mhm.
I would just like, and I'm sure that the deck's going to evolve, especially around your the meta around you, just based on like what people like to play. Because like, say you have a lot of Vinsets in your area, and you're like, okay, well, it's going to be very different than coming over where like you have a bunch of Guardians. Like that, I know that's the area in which I play. It's like Guardian heavy,
Mhm.
so it's like the deck's going to be different. And some like you can just talk to your opponents and be like, hey, what do you think is best to help tackle that? I think one of the best things is just asking people around, like, hey, do you have bulk? What do you think is best for my deck? And kind of what was Cody was saying earlier is just like if you like opening boxes, just slowly like open some packs here and there, pull some Majestics, put them in your deck, see how they feel, and slowly like piecemeal your deck together. And like you can, okay, well, I've seen that this Gravy Bones runs this, so let me try this out. And I think that should
Mhm.
definitely help you like step into the game.
Yeah, and then speaking of looking at other lists, want to go over the Brody Spurlock and Jacob Shaker list just a little bit
Mm,
before we leave you guys with a question for the week. So Jacob Shaker, finalist of the U.S. Nationals, got second place. His list is really interesting. So he's on 6 golden tipples. For reference, golden tipple is a 1 cost. It comes in rainbow. The red is 3 power, 2 block. It says when this attacks, you may discard a yellow card. If you do, draw a card and create a gold token. So what's interesting is that I think in my experience with Gravy, gold has been like the initial gold, I should say, is the most important. Like having at least 1 gold on the board all the time is extremely important. Usually, once you get to like 1 or like 2 or 3 gold, you're gonna have unlimited gold from then on. Like gold is no longer a problem once you get to 2 or 3 gold because then you're constantly like activating the hook and getting your extra gold on hits there, and your opponent just can't block all your allies and stop your gold generation. So it's like you just need to get the first 2 or 3 gold, and then you're good. And golden
well,
tipple
even
helps
in
you do
the
that.
armory deck, I just found like it would have felt a lot better if I had 1 or 2 more gold. That's where Golden
Yeah,
Tipple helps out a lot. Like if you don't have the hook, it just steps in as that gold generator. And so
yeah,
it's again a really cheap option, a really easy option to just be able to like slot them in your deck. And it's like 9 of your 60 generates you gold
yeah. Yeah,
if you
it's
have the
very good for
yellows.
that. But I want to say, like, I think what's interesting about Jacob's list is that he has a lot of non-blocking cards, like a lot of non-blocking cards. He,
Yeah.
which he basically took advantage of the fact that your opponent is not going to be attacking your face that often. They're going to be clearing your board. Like if you are aggressive with your board and constantly
Mhm.
giving them threats to deal with, they're not going to be attacking you very often. So it doesn't matter if you're running, 2 fabled and like basically 30 no blocks in your deck. Like it just doesn't matter if they're not attacking
Yeah.
you. And
Wild.
yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that maybe people were harping on early on, where they were like, "Oh, I need my blue block threes. I need to be able to block well because we have so many no blocks in the deck." Not
Mhm.
realizing that your opponent's not going to be attacking you that often, actually, because you're just constantly going to be playing these allies that they're going to be attacking instead. Um, so I really like his direction. I like Iva Fiddy a lot. Um, yeah, obviously, like, I'm talking about these decks now from like not a new player experience and just like Gravy
Oh yeah,
building
but
overall.
competitive.
Yeah, more competitive angle. But Iva Fiddy is really cool because I think your strongest blue in the deck is Chart the High Seas, which says look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may pitch a blue card
Mm.
from among them, put the rest in your graveyard. Create a gold token for each yellow card put in the graveyard this way. So the quote unquote the nuts of this card is you hit a blue and a yellow off the top of your deck. You get to pitch the blue card and you discard the yellow card. Chart the High Seas goes to your graveyard. So now you've effectively spent 0 cards. You have an ally in your
Mhm.
graveyard, and your gravy ability is online to play a card's water grave because you basically pitched the blue card too. So it costs you 0 cards and you did everything you want to do. And Eye of Ophidia helps you not only get there with Chart the High Seas, but just in general with your Gravy Bones ability, or like your. I guess you don't really have a lot of like destroy the top of your card of your deck in here, but you just get to like dig harder or know what's the top of your deck. I think it's important to know like if you have a blue on top or if you have an ally on top after you've already manipulated the top card of the deck with your compass. So I thought that was really interesting and a good conclusion. I'm also a big fan of the amulets. I think the amulets are really cool because if you discard them off the top for any reason, then not only is a water card card going to your graveyard, but it's also a blue card going to your graveyard. So if you like Gravy Bones activation, draw, discard one of these amulets, that's your Gravy Bones activation, and you have another watery card. And like if you ever have an extra action point for any reason, you can just play it from your graveyard. You can just play these amulets. It's like a free card from your graveyard. I think they're really sick.
The Amethyst amulet really threw me off when I saw that.
I don't know about that one. That's the one where like, do we need this one? I'm not sure. Like it's cool with CNC for like throw CNC for 8. It's obviously kind of nice, but I think it's the only spot. Maybe Conquer for 10 is slightly better, but I think it's like definitely the amulet that's the most cuttable. But Diamond Amulet is really good. Ruby Amulet is really good. And I was honestly thinking about adding the Eye of Ophidia amulet in my gravy list. I think it's really good to have the optability. And then I think like the biggest difference between a lot of these lists are the allies, like what allies you include. And I think Jacob has a really good set of allies. Like he has the 3 whalers, he has the 3 rigor mortis. Sawbones is a guarantee. Like you have to have Sawbones and Chum and Limpet. And the only like questionable ones really are Anka and Oyston. And I think those are very defensible for a lot of reasons. And I want to compare that to Brody's list really quick, who it basically has the same types of allies except for swapping Oyston for Swabbies. I think Swabbies are pretty sick. It's like here's 7 damage and you have to throw a whole card at it. Like a lot of decks just aren't going to want to deal with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, Brody's list has yellow tipples instead, and only 1 Loot the Hold, which I'm not sure I agree with. I think Loot the Hold is a really, really good card. By the way, Loot the Hold is your next pirate ally attack this turn when this hits a hero, they discard a card. If they do, create a gold token. Just giving your allies on hits is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. Like being like, oh, here's a Swabby. By the way, if he takes any of this damage, you're discarding a card. Like what?
Yeah.
Like how do you deal with that? It's insane. But a little bit more defensive.
What I find is kind of interesting between the both of them is that they both keep the back alley break line in their list.
Yeah, I think back alley break line is actually really good. I think that having that, like, I think you're action point gated sometimes. Like you have this issue of like, oh, if you just play an ally and swing an ally, you can get fatigued. Like you need to be able to go big, right? You need to have the rums or the action points, like the time stamp potion effectively, or the time stamp amulet. You need to have some way to just do like a really big turn and punish your opponent for just blocking out and swinging at you. Because while you can maybe just get there off of like quote unquote deck damage by playing allies, like it's not really good enough. Like you need to have these big turns where you're forcing your opponent just to take damage to clear your board, and the extra action points do that. Yeah, those
one
are
thing
the
I think
changes.
is
Go ahead.
I was gonna say one thing I find interesting in Brody's list is that he's running Sink Below over the Blood in the Water.
Yeah, Blood in the Water is interesting. Obviously it's really nice to get that like free block 6 and like destroy card off the top of your deck, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's good, if it's better than necessarily than Sink Below. Sink Below is obviously really good just to do some hand fixing. Maybe you have a hand that just doesn't feel like it does anything. And I noticed when I was watching some of Jacob Shager's games on stream that he was just very aggressively using gravy ability just to like manipulate the hand. And so Sink Below is basically just like an extra gravy ability that turn. Like you get to like block and like swap out a card in your hand. Maybe like you have too many allies, or you have too many blues that don't really do anything, and you just kind of want to you just kind of want to filter. You just want to have a hand that just does a little bit more than it's currently doing. Um, I don't. So I think the sync blow is kind of nice. I don't mind it at all, especially if you're like getting enough gold that you're able to constantly activate gravy ability, and you don't need to really have ways to discard these allies too often. Then I think sync blow is perfectly good over blood in the water.
Yeah. It's just the I think I already have trauma from Blood in the Water from playing against Noah.
Yeah.
Because we played a few like games and like, oh, batter to a pulp, which is insane against Gravy Bones, by the way.
Oh, I bet.
It's like batter to a pulp, and like every time I throw it, he's like, "Oh, blood in the water, discarding an ally and blocking one battle one." Like, oh, well, there's the crush ability off, and I'm like,
Yeah, I guess dominate blood in the water is pretty good, huh?
yeah, yeah. But like, I could definitely see like out of 90% of matchups, Sink Below could be better. It's just like the Guardian matchup, and I'm like, haha, dominate, do this weird thing, try and take Compass, and they're like, block.
Yeah.
Discard this, get all that value. No, it's cool though.
Yeah. But anything else you want to talk about these lists? I think those are the main things. Was like you can have this idea of like your opponent's not going to attack you very much. You don't need to worry too much about blue block threes. And then
The
ally choices are like the big thing, I think.
the last thing is to throw caution to the wind.
Which one's that
Like
again?
it was in Jacob's list, but it's reveal the top card of your deck. The next time you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent
Oh,
X, where X is the damage that the pitch value, or where
yeah.
X is the pitch value of the card revealed. I I don't know about that card. Like he did well with it, but like man, every time I see that card, I'm like, is this actually good?
I think it's fine. I was kind of considering it. It's I think the main thing is that you can you can run arcane compliance instead. I think that's the only real swap for this in terms of like another blue that is like Kano and potentially Verdansk hate, but I guess not really Verdansk hate anymore because of the way that they can just put the damage on their feet instead. But I don't hate it because like yeah, it hits Verdansk. It is gonna often be for a blue. If you see a yellow or red on top, you can just activate Gravy because you're gonna have plenty of gold in these types of lists. Um, Against Kano, it's basically another like spell void on their wildfire.
That's true.
Um, I think it's pretty good. And like whenever you don't want it, it's still just a blue. It can even be blue activated. You could just play it for no value just to turn on your gravy ability and like play a water grave. Um,
I guess that's true. It's just weird to me because it looks like a draft chaff card. Like,
it seems like it, but like it's a blue card that
mhm,
you can just pitch if you don't need it. You can also just play it if you don't need it. It's not gonna like brick you in any way in terms of like it's just gonna be stuck in your hand. It's not like Oasis Respite where you have to like sit on
yeah.
it forever. Um, and if you draw the second one, you're like, what do I do with this thing? It's not like that at all. So
You know what?
I like
Like
it.
talking about that card, it was really cool watching the finals match because Majin Bay had like lethal
Mhm.
halfway through the game, kind of like similar to the match before, but this time like he had lethal and he kept lethal for turn after turn after turn.
Mm.
But like what he was doing was he was slowly chipping the opponent down to guarantee through caution to the wind. Because like he like it was like being super cautious because if he played caution to the wind, like he didn't have lethal early on in the
I
game when
see.
he did. Like he didn't like it was a situation where he didn't know he had lethal
Right.
because like he knew caution to the wind was in the deck and he was so worried about that being played that he slowly just chipped the opponent's health down until caution to the wind just didn't matter anymore.
Right.
So that was like really cool to watch that game for like that reason there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard that I didn't watch it, but I heard that Jacob Shaker didn't run any AB, which
Oh,
is a choice.
that is a choice. When he has three AB in his sideboard.
Yeah, I think he just run one AB. I think he just replaced the helmet, which actually he doesn't have
Huh.
helmet AB, which is interesting. But I think you're supposed to replace the helmet with AB, or maybe the arms. The arms are really
With the
good though.
boots.
The boots are also really good. Like you just going that large against Verdansk. Like what are they gonna do when you double ally them?
I think the idea he had was just present so much pressure that Verdance doesn't really get the chance to like respond, which that's actually like understandable,
I
but
think that the main problem is that you're action point gated in Gravy, right? Like you have to
yeah,
run these tip the bar keeps and these like back alley break lines just so that actually he's not even on tip the bar keep. Yeah, he doesn't even have the tip the bar keep, so he doesn't have it like a lot of ways to get extra action points. So like you can play all the allies you want. Outside of limpet, you're still only swinging one of them most of the time. Like, cool,
yeah,
you have 3 rigor mortis. What are you gonna do with that? Like, it gets to a point where like you're still not actually presenting that much damage to your opponent, right? Like, yeah, you have these big threats on the board, but do they
no,
care?
that makes sense.
Um, it's really just Whaler. That's the only one that I can think of that's like, oh shit, like this is on the board. I have to deal with it. Um, but outside of
What was
that,
interest? I think Whaler was on the board for like 6 turns. Was the thing
oh
like
really?
he got Whaler pretty early on and kept swinging with it. And Majin just didn't choose to kill Whaler. He's like, oh yeah, you can keep Whaler. Just throw a little arcane at you. And it was an interesting game. I think the first like turn was scuffed by both of them, which was really interesting.
Mm,
But I mean, a long tournament,
mm,
and like the games leading up to it, especially from like Majin's base side, were super long and probably really intensive. So
mm,
going from that new game where it went long, he had to play perfectly to find the win, and like 5 minutes later, going into the finals, like totally understand because I don't know if you saw, he
mm.
threw or Jacob threw Conqueror of the High Seas, and Majin Bay like thought about it, and he's like, I'll take it. I'll lose my arsenal and discarded a sink below." And then he remembered that it doesn't have the text like Command and Conquer, where
Oh, that's funny.
you can defend with defense reactions. So it would have saved him for life. But then Jacob on his next turn did a turn planning to play out allies, but
Didn't play
didn't
blue.
discard a blue.
I heard.
So he's
Yeah.
like planned through his whole turn. So like they both had a pretty like turn 1 and 2. I'm pretty sure it was just like,
Mm,
oh, play through the turn. Oh no, or like, oh, go to defend. Boom, there goes the sink below. So it's like
yeah.
I like it. I mean, it's a long weekend, so
Game's
you
hard.
gotta give him a little
Game's
bit.
hard.
Game's
Long
really
day.
hard.
Yeah. I don't
I mean,
blame
we have
any
CNC
mistakes.
and CNCs.
CNC.
So like I'm sure that really doesn't help when it's like, oh, this is CNC, and it's like, oh, okay, well I can't defend with below.
Right. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about these lists before we tie it up?
Nothing else too crazy. I mean, a lot of it from what I've understand and tested seems pretty stock standard at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be excited to be diving into Gravy and uh I'm gonna be building him, but I won't be potentially building him in person for a while. We'll see when his cards get
Yeah,
cheaper. It is not a cheap deck to build at the moment. It's also not easy to find boxes just to crack my own cards out of it. So we'll see when I
right.
actually get to play Gravy in person. But in the meantime, I'll be playing Dash IO.
I mean, you could be playing the armory deck. I have
I
both for
could.
you.
I mean, I actually bought the Armory deck in preparation for
Okay,
potentially playing at Nats, but yeah, that's at least the full deck, not quite an option.
yeah, the full
um,
deck is pretty expensive right now, which
yeah,
it's like interesting because like some cards like Blood in the Water is only like $5, which like
you
it's
don't
probably
need it
because
either.
you don't yeah, you don't really need it.
Yeah, it's really just like all the M's. There's just so many M's that you need.
There are
Um,
so many.
yeah,
Again, I think we said it earlier, like most if not all of the M's are super playable in this deck.
yeah.
And I think that's the problem is like I think the biggest problem too is everyone wants to build Gravy.
I
Like
think that's the biggest
me
problem.
over
Yeah,
here, yeah. I'm over here and I'm a Guardian enjoyer through and through, and I'm like, Gravy's seeming pretty fun, and I even
Gravy's
have a
pretty
Gravy
cool.
time.
Yeah,
So it's like
um,
I play him every once in a while, but it's definitely not full, and it like I don't even have any of the majestic allies either. I only have like the golden tipples and chart the high seas. Like that's the bit like the only changes I've made to the
but yeah, Nick Gravenek's cool. Highly recommend him if you can get the cards. But with that, I want to leave all of our listeners off with a question. First, did you go to Nats? Did you go to Nationals? Whether it was U.S. or anywhere else, like because this by the time this podcast airs and you've listened to it, maybe you've had your own local countries Nationals.
I don't think there actually are any Nationals this week, so I think
I'm almost certain there's one. There's at least
no. I think it's a calling.
Oh, is it a calling?
I'm pretty sure it's calling Bologna.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you're at U.S. Nationals, then let us know what your experience was. Did you have fun? What did you bring? How did you do? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this episode, if you want to hear more of us, like and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. And with that, I'm Cody.
And I'm Jacob.
Thanks for watching and listening.